Your anxiety is the cost of real options. The moment you see more than one real path, change jobs or stay, commit or drift, speak or stay silent, your stomach tilts and your thoughts whirl. Søren Kierkegaard called that whirl the dizziness that visits a free human being staring over the ledge of possibility. It feels like threat, but it isn't only threat, it is also invitation. You are not broken for feeling it. You are awake. The question is what you do next. Numb it, flee it, glamorize it, or learn to read it as the pressure of responsibility asking you to choose and then to become someone who can keep choosing. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. Kierkegaard's sentence is clinical and humane at once. Fear has an object, dog, debt, diagnosis. Something present that you can point to and plan around anxiety, by contrast, is objectless pressure. It arrives when you confront the range of what could be, including the uncomfortable truth that you could destroy your life, rescue it, or waste it with equal ease. That breadth is intoxicating and nauseating. The nausea is not proof of illness. It is the vestibular system of the soul reporting that you are on an edge. This matters because the ordinary story treats anxiety as pathology to be eradicated, full stop. You learn to speak about it as malfunction, and then medicate, distract, or shame yourself for having it. Kierkegaard does not deny that anxiety can become disabling. He refuses the reduction that labels every tremor as defect. He reads it as a teacher of possibility. Without anxiety, there is no free act. A machine does not feel anxious. A person does, because a person can do otherwise. Watch how this reframing works in daily scenes. You stand over a draft email that could change your career. The dizziness rises because one version sends, another edits, a third deletes, and each version binds you to a different self. You hover on a dating app, tempted to reduce living beings to swipes because swiping lets you postpone the vertigo of being fully seen. You consider telling a truth that will cost you. The shake in your hands is not only panic, it is also the energy of authorship struggling to take shape. Anxiety converses with imagination. Imagination projects possibilities, and anxiety announces their gravity. If imagination is amputated, anxiety often hardens into a grey hum of undirected doom. If imagination runs unruled, anxiety becomes a carnival of lurid futures. The task is not to silence imagination, but to yoke it to responsibility so that the could becomes a should you are willing to own. That is where dignity enters. You choose a possibility and accept the bill. Kierkegaard is ruthless about the counterfeit cures. One counterfeit is distraction, turning to screens, treats, gossip, busyness, to avoid the cliff. Another is abstraction, living in opinions and aesthetics so that you can forever interpret choices without making them. A third is bravado, performing certainty to quiet the crowd, while your insides keep spiraling. All three shrink a life. They keep you safe from the dizziness by staying far from heights and far from views. To live with anxiety well, you must first stop lying about its source. You are not panicking for no reason. You are panicking because a reason is present. You are free here. You could wound someone or heal them with this sentence. You could sell your integrity or invest it. You could choose a vow that will shape a decade or flirt with 1,000 temporary angles that never cohere into a name. The honest naming is strangely calming. You stop chasing cures for a symptom and start listening to a signal. This is not a license to suffer for style. If your anxiety is severe, if it collapses sleep, work, or safety, seek professional help. Kierkegaard's point does not glamorize panic. It restores meaning to a distress that modern life too quickly trivializes. The dizzy person is not a defective machine. The dizzy person is a human being standing in front of possibility, and possibility is heavy, The good news is that wait can be trained for. The training begins with respect. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is your alarm that real freedom is in the room. Kierkegaard's entire project is responsibility. He looks at a life and says, "You are not one more grain moved by the weather. You are a self, and a self is a task." Anxiety appears precisely because the task is yours. No one can sign for you. You can blame parents, markets, algorithms, lovers, luck. All may have shaped the field. But when the moment of decision arrives, something scandalous remains. You must say yes or no. That must is freedom's shadow. The shiver you feel is the demand that you author, not merely consume, your days. To dodge authorship, people adopt masks. The aesthetic life gathers experiences like seashells, forever sampling and never binding. It keeps anxiety at bay by refusing commitments deep enough to cut the ethical life in Kierkegaard's sense, accepts the burden of choosing and becoming accountable for the person those choices make. It doesn't wait for perfect certainty. It accepts that certainty is a luxury goods store with no inventory. The ethical person says, "Because certainty will not come, I will choose anyway. And then I will become the kind of human who can bear the consequences without theatrics." Here, the dizziness makes sense. Freedom is terrifying because the future isn't merely happening to you. You are implicated in creating it. You feel exposed. What if you pick poorly? What if you hurt someone? What if you are ordinary? The temptation is to outsource the pain of authorship. Let crowds decide by proxy. Let best practices or trending scripts pick for you. Let a partner's needs or a manager's mood substitute for your own stance. Kierkegaard calls that the crowd is untruth, not because groups cannot be wise, but because they cannot assume your responsibility. Notice how not choosing is itself a thick choice. You keep options open, drift, delay, equivocate. Tell yourself that timing isn't right. Months pass. That too is a maxim. When faced with weight, I will not bear it. The relief is real, and so is the corrosion. The self that never binds, never ripens. Anxiety doesn't vanish. It goes underground and leaks as bitterness at the people who did choose. You call their courage privilege or their commitments naivety, so you don't have to face your own refusal. Kierkegaard would not scold. He would simply ask whether the relief is worth the life. Responsibility, to him, is not coldness. It is warmth made adult. It does not eliminate feeling. It refuses to be ruled by feeling. It respects limits. You cannot know all effects. You can only pledge your best reasons and your stamina to repair when wrong. You do not need a prophecy. You need a posture. The posture is simple to describe and hard to practice. Select an aim your conscience can bless. Accept that the choice entails loss, and then give yourself fully enough that new clarity emerges only inside the moved life, not in speculation about it. This is why his anxiety is dizziness. Your vision blurs because possibility multiplies. The cure is not to shrink possibility to one line. It is to pick one and walk it until new possibilities arise from the inside. From the outside, options look infinite and equal. From the inside of a vow, options stratify. Some dim, others blaze. Choice concentrates the field. It doesn't impoverish it. The person who chooses becomes more free because new capacities emerge only after the first commitment is made. Anxiety is the toll at the gate. You pay it to enter the road where freedom becomes specific. Decision paralysis is how many of us manage anxiety today. Instead of choosing, we simulate choice. We scroll comparisons, binge expertise, debating comments, draft pros, shark cons lists that metastasize, and tell ourselves we are gathering information. Sometimes we are. Often we are tranquilizing dread with motion. Kierkegaard anticipated this before smartphones. The self keeps rotating to avoid boredom and the pain of being alone with responsibility. The rotation method feels like life because novelty pumps the nerves. It is not life. It is stalling with a soundtrack. Screens are potent because they deliver the illusion of freedom without the cost of authorship. You can sample 1,000 identities, rehearse 1,000 positions, consume 1,000 stories of other people's decisive moments, and never place your own skin in the game. You are forever on the verge, forever almost ready, forever working on yourself, without a specific someone or something to give yourself. Till anxiety recedes to a manageable hum, then surges at night, then gets knocked back with more input. Weeks disappear. Kierkegaard would diagnose the pattern plainly. You are trying to remove dizziness by removing heights. Short term, it works. Long term, you wake to a strange hollowness. The self is a relation that relates itself to itself, he says, but it matures only by relating to another, a task, a person, a god, a cause, that draws you out of reference loops and into reality. Endless self-reference breeds despair because no choice sticks, and without sticking you can neither fail honestly nor flourish. Anxiety, unspent on choice, becomes background radiation. The alternative is neither Spartan cruelty nor productivity theatre. It is deciding where the screen ends and your life resumes. Decide when input becomes avoidance. Decide what countable acts would convert this topic from contemplation to commitment. Decide whom you owe a sentence today that closes an open loop. You will feel the wave of dizziness as you move from about to into. That is proof you left the aquarium. None of this denies that anxiety can be clinical. When your nervous system is ablaze, advice about just choose is offensive. Here, Kierkegaard's respect for the single individual matters. Seek professional help when panic disables work, rest, safety, or relationships. Medication, therapy, and structure are not retreats from freedom. They are scaffolds that make responsible choice possible again. The romanticization of suffering is one more dodge. Aesthetic pain as identity, so you never have to risk healing. For the rest of us, the anxious but still functional, the intervention is moral and existential, not informational. Your problem is not ignorance, it is courage. You know enough to pick. You refuse the loss every pick entails. So you dip into 1,000 mini pleasures and micro arguments to buy delay. You are not evil for this. You are afraid. Call the fear by its right name, fear of authorship. Then cut a small piece of the choice and do it. Not because you're ready, because readiness is a myth that disappears only after action renders the next step visible. You will find, strangely, that the first honest yes or no quiets the noise better than 100 threads. Anxiety is a signal. It settles not when you smother it with content, but when you honor what it asked for. A person willing to bear responsibility in daylight. The dizziness doesn't vanish. It recedes to a hum you can carry while you work. That hum is your proof you're still free. Kierkegaard's cure is inwardness, not withdrawal into narcissism, but a concentrated attention to the singular life you are charged to live. Anxiety teaches inwardness by exposing the gap between what people do and what I must do. The crowd offers scripts. Anxiety, properly read, says, these scripts are too wide or too narrow for your conscience, your circumstance, your calling. Only you can weigh them. The weighing cannot be outsourced to a pole. Inwardness begins with listening for the particular. The universal commands, tell the truth, do no harm, honor commitments, do not tell you whether to move cities, propose now, pivot careers, speak up in this meeting, you must discern. Anxiety is the static you hear while tuning the station. You reduce static by naming your real ends and real limits. What kind of good do you want to be responsible for? Which constraints are non-negotiable? Which comforts you are willing to forfeit? When ends and limits are named, many options lose their glamour. Dizziness eases because you no longer pretend to be 10 people. You become one. Inwardness also demands humility. You will not know everything. You will be wrong. You will injure people despite your best efforts. Kierkegaard will not flatter you with guarantees. He will offer a different peace, the peace of responsibility undertaken without claims to godlike knowledge. You choose with the light you have. You apologize when your shadow hits others. You repair, you learn, you choose again. Anxiety becomes a tutor rather than a tyrant because you stop demanding that it grant you the impossible, pain-free certainty, and instead accept what it can give. Awareness that this matters and that you must be present. Anxiety's classroom has boundaries. Do not glamorize the vertigo. Panic is not depth. Meltdown is not authenticity. If your symptoms impede the very inwardness you seek, if your hands won't stop shaking, if sleep vanishes, if ordinary tasks collapse, seek help sooner, not later. Kierkegaard's spirituality includes prayer and surrender. Your era includes physicians and therapists. Use what protects your capacity to be responsible. The point is not to suffer nobly. The point is to become able to keep promises you actually make. Inwardness does not mean isolation. You are a single individual, yes, but not a single atom. Anxiety often softens when you speak your specific dilemma to a specific hearer who will not vote for you, but will mirror you back to yourself. Choose people who don't erase your freedom with advice, who ask questions that make you more honest, who remind you of ends when your fear tries to rewrite them. Community at its best does not choose for you. It keeps you brave enough to choose. Finally, inwardness asks for repetition, that beautiful Kierkegaardian word for the courage to do again what is right but not novel. Anxiety spikes at firsts. It also spikes at afters. After the honeymoon of a job, after a child's arrival, after a vow meets the tedium of maintenance. The soul that cannot repeat collapses into escapism. The soul that learns repetition converts anxiety into rhythm. Dizziness recedes, not because cliffs disappear, but because footing strengthens. You become particular by repetition, not 1,000 borrowed identities, but one person doing what is yours to do, again. Inwardness in this sense is not self-absorption. It is loyalty to the life that has your name on it. Anxiety forces the question, will you live it, or will you rent a role? When you choose the first, the world may shrink in breadth and deepen in color. The shrink is not loss, it is focus. Possibility remains, but it is possibility under vows that is the only possibility that ever becomes flesh. Anxiety is often outsourced to roles. You pick a career that will decide for you, a partner who will feel for you, a community that will absolve you. For a time, it works. The calendar fills, the norms speak, the hum quiets. Then the cracks appear. The job you chose to avoid choice now demands a choice about integrity. The partner you leaned on now needs you to stand. The community you hoped would carry you asks you to vote your conscience against it. Anxiety returns, angrier for having been dismissed. Kierkegaard would say, you tried to escape personhood by hiding inside an identity. Identities are good. Idolatry is not. In love, anxiety tempts two errors. One is fusion. Erase the boundary between selves so that your partner's moods and needs replace your own. Decisions feel easier because you simply echo. The other is perpetual audition. Keep the bond shallow enough that you can flee the instant dizziness appears. Fusion kills freedom. Audition kills intimacy. The ethical path Kierkegaard draws is vow under freedom. Two single individuals who choose each other while preserving responsibility for their own souls. Anxiety here is a precondition of real closeness. You could be hurt precisely because you are not merged. That is why boundaries are loving. They are not punishments. They are the guardrails that keep a promise possible. I won't lie for us. I will name needs early before resentment writes them. If you punish honesty, I will step back. These are not threats. They are acknowledgements that a relationship worthy of the name requires two authors who can tolerate dizziness and still choose. Using someone to numb anxiety degrades them and you. Choosing someone in full view of anxiety dignifies them and you. In work, the parallel holds. Careers tranquilize anxiety when you surrender agency to the path. This is what one does. And then permit that path to override conscience. You ascend, numb and praised, until a moment forces you to pick between the warm bath and the mirror. Kierkegaard will not tell you which title to chase. He will ask whether the chase is hiding you from the harder task, becoming an accountable self who can say no when no is costly, and yes when yes is boring, but right. The practical sign you're numbing rather than choosing is resentment. You resent the partner you fused with because they cannot carry your soul. You resent the company that promoted you because it never promised to give you a spine. Resentment is the bile that forms when anxiety is refused. The cure is the same as before. Authorship. Name what you chose badly and why. Choose differently with costs accepted. Ask forgiveness if you use someone as your sedative. Make amends by becoming trustworthy in the small, dull ways that rebuild faith. Kierkegaard's works of love are not sentiment. They are acts that tether freedom to care. In love and work, you are free for something. To keep this family intact with honesty. To keep this product worthy of trust. To keep this team safe for truth. Anxiety will visit at each hinge. Welcome it as proof that you are still a person, not just a role. Then act in a way a future self would be proud to sign. The signature is what slowly replaces dizziness with steadiness. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but sufficiently that you can keep giving yourself without disappearing. People hear leap of faith and imagine blind abandon. Kierkegaard means something sterner. A decision that cannot be justified to the crowd in advance. A decision that binds you to a future self only you and God, in his vocabulary, can finally see. The leap is not a stunt. It is the end of dithering. You leap into a path you can answer for. Marriage, parenthood, a vocation, a renunciation, and then you live the answer daily. The reward is not fireworks. It is a slow replacement of diffuse anxiety with concentrated courage. You cease to be a spectator of your life and become its author. To leap sanely, accept loss. Every yes is 1,000 no's. Much anxiety comes from pretending this isn't so. You attempt to keep all doors ajar, so you never feel the grief of closing a good one. Kierkegaard invites you to grieve properly. Name the paths you will never walk, because you chose this one. Honor them, then unfriend them. If you refuse mourning, you'll cheat on your vows with ghosts. If you mourn, you'll return to your vows with affection unpoisoned by fantasy. After loss comes repair. Choices are not immaculate. You will misjudge. You will hurt people you meant to protect. The leap is not into infallibility. It is into responsibility robust enough to fix what you break. Anxiety becomes fuel here because it keeps you alert to consequences and quick to amend. The person who never feels anxious is not brave. They are numb. The person who feels it and still shows up at the scene of their own errors with tools, that is the adult Kierkegaard honors. Let anxiety also guard you from self-forgetting. When the hum returns after months of settled life, listen. It may be the signal that a new decision is due, not to annihilate the old, but to renew it with new understanding, or to pivot in light of new truth. Repetition is not mindless. It is creative fidelity. You keep choosing the marriage, the craft, the sobriety, the prayer, And each time the choosing gets cleaner, less theatrical, more free. The dizziness doesn't disappear. It becomes a sensation you can stand while you move. Against all this stands the temptation to build a personality out of anxiety, to be the permanently overwhelmed, permanently processing, permanently almost ready person. That identity gathers sympathy and absolves responsibility, and it will waste your only life. Resist the aesthetic of fragility. Seek help when you need it. Rest when you must. Ask for hands when you are slipping, and then choose. Choose when you are afraid. Choose when you are tired. Choose when no one will applaud. Choose because choosing is how a self takes shape. Kierkegaard's hope is bracing. You can become someone whose freedom does not scatter you. Not because you found the magic option that removed risk, but because you learned to carry risk without drama and to repair without despair. The mark of that person is simple. They are easy to trust, not because they never shake, but because their shaking does not make them cruel or flaky. They tell the truth about their options and then they act. If they get it wrong, they say so. If they hurt you, they come back. Anxiety has done its work in them. It made them careful with what matters and courageous when care is not enough. So treat anxiety as a sign that your next act deserves reverence. Turn down the volume of takes and tune into the particular. Draw near to the few people who help you choose rather than choose for you. Accept that dizziness is the honest price of walking near real edges. And then step, not to silence the hum, but to give it something worthy to accompany. A life owned from the inside, decision by decision, with mistakes repaired and promises kept. You are free. The dizziness proves it. Use it.